Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to this ESPD webinar, where we will have a deeper look at the easy reading tool for people with cognitive disabilities on the web. A couple of technical information before we get started. This webinar will be recorded and made available on ESPD social media channels after the event. Your microphone will be muted to ensure the quality of the session and to ensure there are no background noises when the speakers will be talking. For questions and comments, please use the chat box. We will make sure that we read them out loud and that we answer them when the time comes. There's also closed captioning available, so you can activate it by clicking the live transcript button on the lower part of your screen in the Zoom panel. Practical information, the subtitles can be clicked and dragged throughout the screen to make sure they're not getting in front of the presentation or the speakers video. And if you would like to access the captions on a separate tab, you can use the link which is now in the chat. That's all concerning the technical info. Now I let you in the hands of Klaus Miesenberger. Klaus, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dimitri, for inviting us, ESPD, to inviting us and for the introduction and putting this workshop in place. My name is Klaus Miesenberger. I'm a professor for computer science at the University of Linz in Austria. And I will do this short presentation and later on the much more important live demo of the easy reading tool by my colleague Peter Heumader. The easy reading tool is actually his main practical work for his PhD. So I will ask you all guys later on to help me by grading Peter for successfully grading his PhD. And so to say, we hope with this presentation that you get interested in a new, innovative and novel approach to provide services for people with cognitive disabilities and related problems of people when they are on the web, with which we implemented with the easy reading tool. Our background, this all is based on a European funded project in Horizon 2020, and we developed all of this in the work we are doing at university as a computer science department. Since 30 years, we have a focus on assistive technology and accessibility, and this provided us or provides us the background and the possibility to really do user-centered research, because we are also running the support center for students with disabilities at our university, bringing us in close contact with end users. Easy reading, what is the background? I think there is no need to talk about the need for better cognitive accessibility on the web. World Health Organization talks about 2 to 3% of the population having a cognitive disabilities. And there are many more users, as we all know, which might have difficulties, be it permanently or in certain situations, having difficulties and barriers in using web content which they want to use, their own interest, or also they have a need to use it, or they must use it, because the web more and more is no longer an option, it is a must. And therefore, accessibility, including cognitive accessibility, is of course of high importance. In most of our countries, let me suggest that it is actually not the problem that services would not be available. There are very good services in terms of providing easy to read translation, alternative versions, in providing symbol language translations and support layout adaptation and other features to users with cognitive disabilities. But our starting point, which we learned from end users, is that there is a paradox. The more and the better the services are, which are available, which are implemented, the more people get segregated from the original content. They get provided an easy to read version, symbol language or things like that. And the more they use it, they learn coping with adapted content for them. And the consequence is, the paradox consequence is, the more and the better the services are, the more a gap is established between mainstream content, which they want to use, and the actual content which they learn with, which they work with, which they are using in everyday situations. And with this, they develop a different language, they learn other things, they develop another culture. We all know being in the language means being in the world, being part of society. And by this fundamental shift from mainstream content to a specialized content, even if these are only small adaptations, this means there is always the danger, the risk of building up segregation, building up gaps. And this is what we wanted actually to address with our project, Easy Reading and the tool development. And it is not my idea. It is not our idea. We learned this from the beginning by using integrating, working with end users. We are in a fortunate situation. One of our spin-offs at university, we employ 7 people with severe cognitive disabilities who are all also educated as co-researchers for design and development activities, and we included them from the beginning. And what we learned about this paradox, what we learned about their actual needs, they expressed themselves, this is what we want to have. We don't want to use, we are happy with all these alternatives, but actually we want to stay much more closer at the original. We want to stay in contact with mainstream. And this made us all together in an inclusive setting, considering, researching, and developing the ideas for the Easy Reading project. One thing, if you might be interested here, is a reference. We developed also in the project a inclusive research methodology, which is called IPA-UCD, Inclusive Participatory Action Research for User-Centered Design. For those of you who are also in research and development, this might be a good point for exchange communication later on, if this is also of interest for you. We are happy that we can report that this actually, in our opinion, or we can prove that this methodology considerably contributed to the success of our project. So the important thing that users, here you see a quote from Dominic, one of our peer researchers with a disability, they can best contribute with their experience. It's so inspiring for them, helpful for them, not only being part, being the subject of questions or whatever, no, to be a designer, to be a co-developer, to be a co-researcher, and this really makes a difference. It was a learning process for us as developers, but of course it contributed to the quality of the product. So we had the idea, we had the core, the essence of the problem, and the goal which we had is, and what we still name, keeping the user at the digital original. Whatever the services are. So the subject is not about a new translation, a new service or whatever. The issue is keeping the services and keeping with the services the user as much as possible at the original, that they can decide themselves independently what they need, what they want, that they can experience learning from the content, from the original content, and also the social learning effect, staying in contact, exchange, whatever the means are, direct contact, virtual contact, or messaging, or things like that, that they are in contact with them, and that they can personalize themselves, or together with their care staff, care providers, that they can personalize the tools, the functionalities, and the services which they want, which they need, and only in the moment when there is a need for it. If they don't need it, they should learn to cope with the original content, because this is the essence and the base for inclusive participation in education, at the job, in society, in culture, in sport, in religion, or whatever the domain might be. The tool which we developed together, the requirement was it should be applicable to all web content. You go to a web page and the tool should be at your hand and supporting you in coping with the original content. More support at the beginning. Later on, you can reduce this as you want in the process of interacting with the content. And so it should be something like a personal buddy. Whenever you call him up, he should be available. It should be available, and you should get the services which you need. And this is also, besides a new approach to web content for end users, it is also a new approach for providing the services, translation and easy to read, symbol annotation, layout adaptation, and things like that, and to keep all these services as close as possible at the original, that the learning effects, the inclusive effects of easy reading are there. And this made us start to develop the tool, and what we have is a framework which allows us to improve cognitive accessibility of web pages at the original and implement it as a cloud solution, so it can be used as a cloud service in real time at any web page which you are using. It is the clients are, you can have it as a browser extension. Apps on mobile devices are available, or you can bring it directly into the web page. This is exactly what Peter later on will demonstrate to you how this works. The users get help in real time. So when they are reading content at all time with a very easy interaction, they can call up the services and they get the help they need, which they predefined themselves, the services, the functionalities they might need, and the help is rendered within the web page. You don't go to a specific other content, to a specific other web page or whatever. No, you stay at the original, and at any point, by a simple click, you get back to the original. And you can hide again the services, the adaptation, because the actual goal, what we learned from end users, what they want is stay at the original content and in contact with mainstream users. The architecture, I will be short here. For those who are more interested in the technical implementation of all these services, the web development techniques, we are open for questions here and we can discuss this later in detail. Actually, what we do, we have a client, as already mentioned. This client allows to call up functionalities in the cloud. It also uses a user profile, which define the parameters of the services the user wants to have. And then we can connect to a number of engines, as we call them, which help to adapt the display and the interaction with the original content. We also have a user tracking module, which is not always live at the moment, but this allows us, and should be in the long run, we are a research institute, we want to implement artificial intelligent features and mechanisms which allow that the system learns through the usage by the user better and better to select the right services and to adapt the services that users with cognitive disabilities are more successful in interacting with web content. What you can do with it. The first thing, and this will be demonstrated later, you have to install and set up. This might be a process where users with cognitive disabilities still need some support. We have easy procedures for that, like QR code, web-based. You have a wizard which guides you through the process, that you have a first setup. What are the services which you can use? The second thing, when you have it, and then you have it whenever you are logged in, when you log in into the system, you see this small chameleon. And we use the chameleon as our symbol. Why? Because a chameleon adapts to the environment. And that's what we want. You work in a certain environment, and the environment should adapt to the requirements of the user. And you have this with you, and you might be in a need of a certain, you do not understand the content. And you click on this chameleon, and a menu appears, which is available on all the web pages where you go out, and these functionalities will try to provide services for all content which is out in the web. And you can then select the service which you want, and it might be spoken to you, it might be a layout adaptation, it might be annotation or translation in easy to read in symbol language or things like that. And this are the services: layout and structure adaptation, explanation and annotation with symbols, pictures which can be used, and of course, translation into easy to read language, better to understand, which you can call up and hide again, because most often you need the services only once and then they can be hidden again. It is my personal buddy which supports cognitive disability or cognitive accessibility all the time. And I don't go into details here, only one aspect. These are not new services. You know them from the browser. You know them from the operating system. You know them from certain web pages. But the issue is, which is a cognitive overload very often, where are they? How can I find them? How can I interact with them? They are somewhere hidden. And this is already an issue which makes people with cognitive disabilities dependent. What we made with our easy to use approach with the Chameleon, you click on, and then you have all the services you defined in the wizard process you have to attend available all the time. And this interface, this interaction concept is the actual novel contribution. And for developers, designers, what we can say, if you develop a much better translator, for example, in symbol language, in easy to read translation, this is wonderful. Focus on that. We can provide to your work a proven interface which has been designed by end users, with end users, and which is proven that it really works and makes the interaction with the services much, much easier than it has been before. One tool, the fourth thing which we will see, is a backend, because all these services, in particular translation, are not perfect. Some of you, and I hope several of you, you are professionals in providing such services, like easy to read translation, symbol annotation, layout adaptation, and things like that. And therefore, there might be contact. It might be legal issues of importance for end users, educational content, what they really have to learn. It might be information or instructions on doing a certain job, where the information, where we have to make sure that the content is really understood. And therefore we implemented a very easy to use functionality to annotate or to change content. You find it also in the browser with this pen symbol. And when you click on the pen, you can select a certain area directly on the web page. And then you get a form interaction, as we know it from many web pages. And you as a professional can provide the easy to read, the symbol annotated, or whatever adaptation, the service which the end user needs. And then you have it directly injected in the original content, not a separated web page, not a printed document you might use or whatever. You stay at the original, and whenever the user needs it, he sees this content, this is hard to understand, he clicks on the symbol for easy to read, and then he gets the easy to read version. This is not a good translation. It shows the interface. It is up to you as the service provider to provide or to do this translation. And really, let's take the example of educational materials to make this a professional educational material, for example, for training on the job, where you have the original content and directly into the content which everybody in a company, in an organization is using, you inject the services which are needed for the individual user. You keep him on the original content, and therefore in the communication process, in the cooperation, he learns about the original, and step by step, we hope he can put away the services and he can cope with the original. So we want to empower the users with this tool that they decide themselves, where do I need help? And then they can call up what services they need. They are not predefined by anybody else. It's themselves in the process of using the content that they learn how to work with the content. And also, how do I want access to help? They have a defined interaction concept which has been defined on a peer-to-peer basis by users with cognitive disabilities, which helps to guarantee the highest level of usability of the interaction. And so let's get started with the demonstration. Peter will demonstrate how Easy Reading works as a browser extension, how it is embedded in a web page and provides the backend functionalities. And later on, those who want to stay with us, we would be happy if some of you would like to install and configure the extension and then create and management themselves some content replacement. I do think this is not an issue of training of hours. It's only a question of training for some minutes, and then you should be there. When not today, easyreading.eu, there you find our contact details, but you also get this from ESPD. We would be more than pleased to get in contact with you if you are interested. We are not a company. We do not sell the product. What we want to do is together with the community to make this a crowdsourced approach. You can share the adaptations which you made and so on. This is all already implemented, and all what we need is to find possibilities, the resources that we can keep up the framework and make it vivid and really a tool, a personal buddy for people with cognitive disabilities. Peter, please.
Thank you, Klaus. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Peter Heumader. I'm a colleague of Klaus. And let me share my screen for a second, this one. So you should see my messed up desktop, but now you should see my browser, right? Yes. So now this is a Firefox browser where I have installed the Easy Reading extension. The extension is at the moment available for Firefox and for Google Chrome, but we are at the moment in the process of also supporting Microsoft Edge now, because it's very easy to support it, as it also is now Chromium based. Once you install it, you have the option to sign in with Google to create an account. In the future, we also will support Facebook logging or to create an anonymous account that is just a temporary account where you can explore all the functionalities of Easy Reading. And later, once you log out, all the data is deleted again. Yeah, I'm going to show you when I log in with my account. Let's say I'm using this Gmail account. Then I'm logged in, and then you see basically here that these are the tools that I have currently selected for my personal profile. When I go now to any web page, this is now the one random page of ESPD. If I reload the page, you can see that this thing, wherever you go, if you go to Wikipedia, for example, it follows you, and you can get help dynamically here. Yes, just to wait, I need to stop to share my screen again for a second, because I think I didn't check to share audio. Let me. So, okay. Let me show you some of the functionalities that our Easy Reading tool provides. So first of all, you have a
new report on the Slovenia Provider Forum highlights key recommendations for supporting persons with disabilities.
So you have a classic text-to-speech functionality. This is very good for people with cognitive disabilities. If they get the text read aloud, it's much easier for them to focus on the text, and they must not also focus on the reading. There are some questions in the chat.
Peter, we see your desktop at the moment.
I'm sharing the wrong screen.
Seems to be.
Do you see now my browser?
It's now the ESPD page.
Okay, sorry for that. Yeah, okay, sorry. So once again, so the text-to-speech functionality, if you select the tool here and then you click on the content.
New report on the Slovenia Provider Forum highlights key recommendations for supporting persons with disabilities during COVID-19.
So basically, this is a simple text-to-speech engine. We are using Amazon's Polly text-to-speech engine for that. But this helps people with cognitive disability a lot to focus on understanding the text, but not have an additional cognitive overload when they have to read also the text. We have other functions, for example, we can, for example, detect the main content of the page and display it then in a better to read format. You can, of course, always switch back and forth here to the original display. Then we can increase or decrease the font size, of course, also here in this view, or we can invert the colors like this for better readability. Then we also provide, for example, experimental tools. For example, the symbol annotation tool. If I use this tool now onto this bullet point here, the content of this bullet point is analyzed, and for each found keyword and a symbol is found and then displayed to the user. You can always switch back and forth to the original display by clicking on the Chameleon. This is a little experimental function, I would say, as it is very difficult to map words which have double meaning or have a different meaning in a different context with the appropriate symbol. But there is still, if research is at the point where we can find the perfect match, then it's very easy to integrate it into our framework. We also have classic functions like a dictionary here, for example, for disabilities, for example. Wait, I have to load. For, let's say, for ensure, for example, this is, you get then a definition on that. Also, we have a symbol function that, for example, for you can search a symbol then for that very word. So that's the symbol for education. If you're familiar with symbol language, we are using how's it called, widget as library, but it is very easy in our framework also to embed different symbol languages like Bliss or Arasac. Probably in the future we will also provide I'm getting an email. Provide an interface where you can add then dynamic symbols sets to your personal profile. Then we also have other functions which are a bit experimental. For example, this is the Wikipedia, how's it called, preview function. So that is basically a function that also detects keywords of a paragraph. And then if there is an appropriate quality entry in Wikipedia, we link this entry and also with the description in it. So for example, for awareness, we have then here the definition, then for healthcare, and for example, for disabilities. So you get this definition embedded. And of course, you can always switch back and forth again to the display. Also, for example, I have now an English profile and I'm on an English page. You can select or translate the language if you want. I have to move the zoom menu a bit, probably you don't see it because I'm using a different screen. So if I go to a German page here and click on this thing here, I can immediately translate it into English, and I can do this basically for every other language too. Okay, these were some of the basic functionalities that our tool offers. I'm going to log out now and show you how you can set up your own account. But I'm doing this now with as an anonymous user. So once you, yes?
Perhaps we should interrupt for questions if they are there, immediate questions.
Yes.
In a moment, if they're out there. Of course, I'm monitoring the chat in parallel, but perhaps if people would like to ask interactively, we would be happy to receive your questions. Unmute and simply ask your questions. Otherwise, Peter will go on.
Mm.
I see there are two questions in the chat, if I may. So I saw that the first one was from Ivan. He said, is it possible to use this tool also with web pages in Italian and or other languages than English? So that's the first one. So maybe I can go answer this one first, and then I can go to the second one.
So currently the tool is translated in, is programmed in English, but is internationalized. It's translated into Swedish and German. And we would be very happy for a cooperation also to create an English or an Italian user interface by a translation by this.
Let me add to that, Peter. If you understand basic English and you prepare the tool for your clients in whatever language, the easy reading tool itself does not use language. It uses the symbols only. So when the tool pops up in whatever language web page, you can use the services. And for example, one issue is of course text-to-speech. And it might be that if there is no good text-to-speech for a certain language, that problems are there. But for most of the languages nowadays, due to the development of the big IT companies, there are good text-to-speech services available, which are already integrated.
There's a question from Irene Brunne, if this works on the iPad. We already developed an app for that, but it's actually not in the App Store. The iPad itself, as Apple is very restrictive, you are not really able to install here browser extensions. So therefore we had to create or fork an existing browser and embed easy reading directly into the browser. So this was a browser written for easy reading, and it's not yet in the App Store, but it's already running, and we hope to get in the App Store soon if you also find some development money for it, but it's working already. Wow, there's so many questions.
Yes, there are a lot of questions coming in now. If you want, you can go through them, Peter, or we can go at the end as you wish.
Yeah.
Wait, so let's, are you going to show us the easy to read option? So this is one of the next options that I'm going to show you.
Yes, and then from Ireland, what would be the cost of the tool? We can discuss it later. At the moment, it's free for end users. So to say, if what we are developing our own, we are university people. Don't ask us, because everything I touch here, I'm bankrupt. So I'm not a company. What we are searching for is cooperation, and our goal is to make it available, be it for bigger organizations or whatever, that they, so to say, are willing to pay a bit, that to keep the system up, the personal profiles and so on. Or we find a possibility that this is funded via advertisement on the page or whatever, or it might be together with ESPD later. There are some negotiations that this is made available for free by some sponsoring, by some funds, and it should be available for everybody. We talk about, when we talk in a European dimension, we talk about the costs for two developer persons who keep the system up, who always adapt it to the newest browser in technical environments and things like that. And that's what we are looking for. But it is our goal. It should be open, it should be free, and everybody should be able to use it without considering, can I afford it or whatever. It should be simply there. And yes, we also talk to big IT industry if this would be of interest, simply to add it to the browsers or whatever. But this is still an issue. The more support we get, the more expression of interest, the better our position in negotiation is. And then there is an additional one. Can the pictograms be personalized or customized? Yes, they can. And if you perhaps No, the backend functionality will come later on and will be demonstrated. We are negotiating and working on integrating globalsymbols.com, and all open source and available symbols will be integrated in there. You can select cross-map different symbols and can personalize, and even later on also personal pictures should be allowed to be integrated. Yes.
Maybe I will show them the annotation with simplified language right now, and we'll just show them the user login and profile creation later. Right, Klaus?
This is okay. I think the questions and the interest at the moment is very much on, so to say, how people use it, how can they can use it, and I think later on we can demonstrate the annotation.
Oh, okay, later. Okay, then. Now let me show it now, because I will be
wrong way wrong. Sorry.
Okay. Okay, so now basically also when we were in the project phase at the beginning, we were in cooperation with IBM. IBM had a project where they created something they called the content simplifier. This was an AI, artificial intelligence powered cloud engine that would automatically or try to automatically simplify English content. In the project phase, we also got access to their API, so we embedded it into the easy reading framework. But soon we realized that these translations were not really usable for us, because sometimes they did not work and sometimes the content was falsified and so on. So this is not really what we could basically serve to the end user. And then we had basically we realized that at the moment, even with artificial intelligence, an automated simplification of language is at the moment not possible. So therefore we created this backend functionality. So I'm dragging in now a different browser with a different browsing extension. That's the authoring tool. So when I when I click on here, first I have to log in. So I'm selecting my account here. And then basically on this page, when I basically select here, I can select then here a paragraph or whatever, where I want to create a simplified version. Let's say I would select this here. Then I get the text here, and then I basically could create a simplified version here. So ESPD is, I'm not really good at this, so I'm just copying this and to have some text here. And then I have to give it a title. It's ESPD, and I save it. I have to publish it also? Okay. So now I can see as a content translator that this is now, even it's not simplified language, it's now embedded here into the page. And when I now reload this page with the different browser where easy reading is installed, you can see that this is now embedded directly into the web page. And I can get, or I can access here the simplified content. So by this, we want to build a, so to say, a crowdsourced solution where whenever people are in need of simplified content, they can, even if they do not have access to the, ESPD is probably also hosted, is a big CMS, and then you're not really able to change content here on their side. But with the easy reading authoring tool, you are able to annotate parts of the content with your translation into easy to read. And then whenever a user with the easy reading extension comes to the site, he will get basically then the information in simplified language or whatever that you provided to him. Okay, then how should I continue? Okay, then I will show you how to create a new profile. So I'm logging out here, and I'm logging now in with as an anonymous user to create a dummy account. But if you later log in with Google and so on, this will be the exact same procedure. So once you are there, you could basically check to say here to start immediately to create the standard profile, or you can create the personalized profile, which I will check now. Of course, for users that are not able to read, we always have.
Do you want to create a personal profile?
We have always text-to-speech enabled by default, so that they're also able to set up their profile. So I'm setting up now my personal profile. I state here that I want to have text-to-speech with normal speed, for example. Then I would like to have translation into different languages. I don't want to use, for example, image explanations, but I would like to have symbol annotation with widget, for example. Then here I could choose the way I want to have my the results displayed. So either I could choose to have it as a tooltip, or directly over the word, or next to the word. I will choose now tooltip. Then I could specify if I need to have increased font size support. And as I'm a bit colorblind, I'm also selecting to change the color font to have it supported. I don't want an ad blocker, but I want the reading mode. And finally, I can also select how I want to activate the help. I'm going to show this later, so I'm just selecting the standard way of activating the help. And here I am, and basically here I have the tools basically that would suit my personal profile here. Now, if I click here, or also on these screwdrivers with the wrench, I'm always able to get to the setup page where I can adjust my user interface. For example, I could attach it to the top and could make bigger buttons. So you can see here it's now attached to the top. Or I could change it directly to a different user interface, for example, with an overlay. And then you can see it's displayed as an overlay that follows you over all web pages. Probably have to reload it at once. Oh, okay. Strange why it behaves like that, but you should be able to drag like this. Yeah. But most people's also in our user tests, they prefer the slide-in user interface, as it's not as obtrusive as the overlay, because this overlay always is between you and probably the text that you want to read. So usually people would use this mode like here, probably with smaller buttons also like this. Then here in the tools, you can basically then enable or disable different tools however you want. So if you want also the screen reader, you can enable this and it pops up. And the last thing that I'm going to show you here for setting up is the different way of choosing your input interaction. For example, right now, the interaction is so I'm going now to a different page, let's say Wikipedia, English. So the interaction is for example, the reading tool is I click on the button and later on
Hurricane Faye was the first of 2 hurricanes to
I click on the text or on the paragraph that I want to have read aloud, and then it would read until I press this button again. When doing user tests, we experienced that people would use a different interaction paradigm. For example, they tried to mark it like you would do it in Microsoft Word, and then they would press this thing here. Of course, this did not work, so we explained it to the test user, and he remembered it for 1 or 2 sites, but then again, he started to mark the text. And therefore, we also implemented the framework in a way that it would adapt to the input modalities or input preferences of the user. So you can change this here. We at the moment have 3 modes in our framework, but it can be extended by more. If I save it now, you should see if I reload the page here that it works now differently. So now when I select the text here,
first of 2 hurricanes to make landfall on Bermuda in October 2014. The 5th hurricane of the 2014.
You can see that it works now differently and also as our test user would have expected it. So you can also select here now just 2 words.
The news.
And that's it. And this is how you basically are able to adjust also easy reading to the different input modalities of the users. We also can do this for the display of the help, but I will not show this now because as I see now we only have 10 minutes, 13 minutes time, and also I want to show a different thing, how to embed easy reading into a web page. I mean, easy reading right now, as you've seen it, you can, it will be available soon as an app also, and it works with browser extensions, but we are able to embed it on a single web page. For example, if you go to, I'm now on a different browser where the easy reading extension is not installed. If you go to easyreading.eu, you can see here that it is embedded in the web page without having the browser installed. And
welcome to our project web.
And it works also. That was a request that we from many companies or people that would engage us after presentation if they can just embed it on the website. And it's very easy to embed it basically in the website. All you need to do is to basically where's it? To embed in the source code 2 lines of code where you embed the script, and then in the backend, which is here, we can then enable your site. So that would be easyreading.eu. So for this site, it would work, which is the same URL here, as you can see. And there you can, we have a profile for that, which is the easy reading profile. And then we can basically adjust the profile here. Wait, I will, it's a bit difficult to see. So like this, how can it, okay, like this. So I have now this thing here. And for example, if I want also text help, text to speech in my profile on the website, I can click this and this would appear then on the website. So it's very easy also to configure, and I can add and remove tools as I want on the website. Okay, and also, I mean, usually we use the Chameleon here, but we had the request for some web pages to use a different logo here. So if you want to have a different logo also, you can add it here like this. So we have a, let's say, okay, well, that is Animaniacs. Okay, so if you want to have a different logo, so that is a cartoon series that for some reason, I don't know why I have it on my desktop, and save it. If I reload now the easy reading page, you could see now that it should have a different logo now. And this is how you can also customize it for the individual web page. Okay. Are there any questions? Thanks for your attention. I hope I was not too fast because there was a lot to show. Are there any questions from the audience? So from our side, we would be very happy if people would try easy reading and also would engage us if they could embed this on their web page. Because we would get valuable user feedback based on that, and we would be able to improve our tools over the time with this user feedback.
It seems as if they asked all that they had in the first half.
Yeah, I think.
There were some questions in the chat, which I tried to answer in the meantime. What was Eleni asked about or gave a feedback about students with dyslexia, and yes, I agree to that. And in particular, we would be very much interested also from a research point of view in this personalization for students with dyslexia. Of course, text-to-speech helps, but what would also be a very nice and good experimenting to see what a difference it makes if we change, for example, the word spacing, the character spacing, the line spacing, the colors and so on, because very often dyslexia is related to fixation problems and other problems. I'm not the total expert in this domain, but it would be very much interesting. And so to say, we have an ideal experimenting tool here, because if we make these simple to implement adaptation features, then people, practitioners, service providers, even towards therapists, they can experiment, work, and use this for analysis, for assessment of skills, of problems of end users, yes. And there was another one which we had, where to get information. Best, as Peter showed, use the easyreading.eu webpage. And what I want to do now, I share the screen that you have our email addresses in addition. Peter.heumader@jkuat and my one Klaus.meisenberger, mostly said in English. And then people ask me, do you come with ham and cheese? But it's not a burger, it's burger at JKUAT. If you have any questions, please feel free, and we would be delighted if you get in contact. And if we could consider to work on further brushing up, sharing easy and better accessibility features, and making this really a crowdsourced tool, which is further developed and maintained in cooperation amongst different organizations. A technical question I see here: how do you detect complex sentences, easy reading guidelines, or classical readability measures? Thanks for this excellent questions. We are working on that. Basically, the tool, the analysis tool we have at the moment are readability measures. What we want to do, again, it is, as said at the beginning, it is the interface which we focused on, and I'm so happy about that it provokes immediately the right questions. And yes, we would love to see possibilities to use the easy reading guidelines, whatever version, wherever are, and they're also experimenting with them in this detection process of complex sentences and in generating proposals for easy to read adaptations automatically. This is a huge research area, and we are already in close contact, in particular with AI experts at our university. They say, yes, we would love to do that. The thing, what they need, tons and more tons and billions of user data, that machine learning procedures could work on that and generate exactly these functionalities which use the easy reading guidelines for adapting the content. Any other questions which I did not see, but I'm sure Dimitri will remind me?
No, I think you have managed to answer everything. I think it will be good, a good idea if both you, Klaus, and Peter provide your emails in the chat so that people can write you afterwards, because I'm sure once they think about it, questions will pop up. So to be able to ask you.
Do you see the slide which I tried to share, which includes the my email and Peter's email address?
Yes, yes.
But I'll write it also now in the chat. It's no problem.
Yeah.
Wonderful, thanks, Peter. So whenever you would like, so we are happy to do, how to say, a guided installation. If you want us to support you in the installation process, to talk about which features are first, or as Peter presented it, how to integrate the service in your own web page, please get in contact with us. We are more than happy to work on that, and of course to discuss with them the features, the possibilities, to do the next steps in this easy reading approach. And I'm really happy. And the issue is simply what we learned. The approach of keeping the user at the original is really what is appreciated by the end users. They see I'm there where everybody else is, and this gives them really a feeling of power, being there, being independent and working with the content themselves. And this is what we would like to share with you, and where we would be happy to get your feedback to do, as said, the next steps. Thank you very much. If there are no other questions, for your attentions, for your interest and the motivating feedback. As said, at any point, get in contact with us and let's exchange further. Any feedback we get, the more users we have, the better it is. And if we are able in cooperation to manage to make this an open source, crowd-sourced, shared tool, this hopefully could make a difference for people with cognitive disabilities and many other users. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Klaus, for this very, very interesting presentation. Thanks to all of the participants. And I'm sure they will contact you in case they have any further questions and in case they would like to use the tool in their daily lives. And of course, the more we use the tool can be improved and extra features can be added for to make sure it can be as useful as possible. So thank you, everyone. Thank you once again, Peter and Klaus. And as I wrote in the chat, do not forget to register for our next assistive technology webinar, which is in 6 days from now at the same time at 2 o'clock. It will be focusing on augmentative and alternative communication, supporting participation over the lifetime. Thank you once again, and see you all soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Dimitri.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take really good care. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.